Hello everyone. This is Anime Dreams, where imagination reshapes destiny and every possibility gets a new storyline. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we dive deeper into an alternate reality filled with power, balance, and transformation. Our fanfiction topic is: what if Naruko mastered both dawn and dusk? Part 3. In this chapter, the boundaries between light and shadow blur even further. Mastery over dawn brings creation, hope, and radiant strength. Command over dusk awakens mystery, depth, and overwhelming resolve. But what happens when both forces exist in perfect harmony within one shinobi? Power is no longer just about strength, it becomes about control, purpose, and consequence. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without further delay, let's begin. 4 months later. Nearly 4 months had passed since the frightening night that changed so many lives in the Hidden Leaf village. The people of Konoha had learned about the attempt to harm Naruko and others close to her, and the news traveled quickly through every street and marketplace. They also learned that Naruko Namikaze, daughter of the Hokage, had bravely protected her friends and helped stop dangerous intruders from causing further harm. For years, some villagers had looked at Naruko with uncertainty because of the mysterious power sealed within her. But when they heard how she had shielded a civilian girl and the heiress of the Hyuga clan, many hearts began to soften. They started to see her not as a rumor or a whisper, but as a girl who cared deeply about others. The story did not remain within Konoha's walls. Word reached other villages as well, despite the Hokage's efforts to keep matters quiet. Tensions between the Hidden Leaf and Iwagakure rose sharply. Trade routes through Amigakure and Kusagakure were restricted, making travel and communication more difficult. The fragile peace that had settled over the elemental nations after the Third Shinobi War felt as delicate as glass. Still, there was some comfort in knowing that Kirigakure and Sunagakure were not prepared for another conflict. Kirigakure was facing internal struggles, and many nations chose to keep their distance. Sunagakure, though proud and resilient, had begun facing financial challenges. The Land of Wind's daimyo had started assigning missions elsewhere, and the Kazekage worked tirelessly to support his village. Back in Konoha, Sakura and Hinata were still recovering emotionally from what had happened. Sakura, who was not born into a shinobi family, had rarely stepped outside her home in the weeks that followed. The Hokage ensured she received gentle medical care and encouragement so she could regain her confidence. Hinata, though raised in the disciplined environment of the Hyuga clan, had also been deeply shaken. Her father and clan members made sure she was surrounded by care and protection. But it was Naruko whose life changed most of all. Ever since she awakened a new power within her eyes, her demeanor had grown calmer and more thoughtful. She still smiled brightly and greeted others with warmth, yet those who knew her well noticed a quiet depth behind her cheerful expression. She had experienced something no story or lesson could truly prepare her for. She had faced danger. She had stood firm when others needed her. And while she felt proud that she had protected her friends, questions had begun to stir in her heart. Her father had often described this era as a time of peace, even if it was imperfect. Naruko wanted to believe that peace could last forever. She simply wished to laugh with her friends, train hard, and return home to share stories with her father at the end of each day. Why couldn't everyone choose kindness instead of conflict? It was a question she often asked herself, though the answer never came easily. "It's time to go home, Naruko," Kurama said gently from within her mind. "You have been sitting here for quite a while." Kurama, the great fox spirit sealed inside her, carried memories older than any village. Though he once viewed humans with deep mistrust, he had come to respect Naruko's bright spirit. He understood the weight she carried and did not wish for her to lose her light. "I know. Just a few more minutes," Naruko replied silently. She sat by the Naka River, watching the moon shimmer across the water. The place felt peaceful, almost as if it remembered the footsteps of generations before her. The river once flowed beside the grounds where the Uchiha clan had lived for many years before relocating to another part of the village. Though officials had spoken of renovations and space planning, many knew the decision had deeper roots tied to old suspicions and misunderstandings. Naruko did not fully grasp the politics behind such choices, but she sensed the sadness that lingered in the air. She hoped that one day, trust would replace doubt. "You say that every evening," Kurama said with a soft huff. "Tomorrow is your first day at the academy. You should rest." "I'm trying," she answered with a small smile. She stood, brushing grass from her clothes, making sure she looked neat. There was a strict rule she followed without exception: there would be no nudity anywhere in her world, no matter the situation. Respect and dignity were important values she carried with her at all times. As she turned to climb the slope toward home, she noticed Sasuke walking alone along the path. Faint smudges of soot marked his sleeves, likely from practicing a fire technique required for his clan's coming-of-age tradition. Their eyes met briefly. Sasuke looked determined, perhaps even frustrated. Though they were the same age, Naruko's abilities had grown quickly, and the difference sometimes weighed on him. She could see it in the way he straightened his posture. Instead of boasting or teasing, Naruko offered him a small, encouraging nod. "Good luck with your training," she said kindly. He hesitated, then gave a short nod in return. As Naruko continued home under the moonlit sky, she felt something steady within her heart. The world beyond her village might be uncertain. Leaders might disagree. Old wounds might take time to heal. But she would keep training. She would keep smiling. And most importantly, she would keep believing that tomorrow could be brighter than today. Flashback, 2 months ago. The afternoon sun shimmered over the Naka River as Sasuke practiced his fire-style technique. He had been asking his father for weeks to teach him the powerful Kaden, Gokakyu no Jutsu. He had heard stories about how Itachi mastered it at a very young age, and he quietly wished for the same recognition. "Are you listening, Sasuke?" Fugaku asked firmly, though not unkindly. Sasuke blinked and nodded quickly. He straightened his posture, determined not to miss a word. Fugaku began explaining the careful breathing and focus required to perform the technique safely and responsibly. He reminded Sasuke that true strength came not from rushing ahead, but from steady practice and patience. Just as Fugaku prepared to demonstrate the hand seals, he sensed someone approaching. He turned to see Naruko standing nearby, her golden hair catching the sunlight. She wore her usual bright smile and carried a folded note in her hand. "Naruko, what brings you here?" Fugaku asked. Naruko bowed politely. "Fugaku-sama, my father wishes to speak with you about something important," she said respectfully, handing him the note. After reading it, Fugaku's expression grew thoughtful. He tucked the note away and paused. He looked at Sasuke, who stood waiting with hopeful eyes. "Sasuke," Fugaku said gently, "would you still like to learn the technique today?" "Yes, father." Sasuke replied eagerly. Fugaku turned to Naruko. "Naruko, would you be willing to help Sasuke practice the fire technique? You understand its fundamentals well." Naruko blinked in surprise but nodded cheerfully. She was always happy to help. She believed that training together made everyone stronger. "But father," Sasuke protested, "you said you would teach me. And how can she know it better than me? We're the same age." Fugaku sighed softly. Sasuke's heart was full of determination, but also impatience. "Learning from others is not a weakness," Fugaku said. "It is a sign of growth." Naruko stepped forward, not offended in the slightest. She walked to the riverbank and carefully formed the hand seal. Taking a steady breath, she demonstrated a controlled version of the fireball jutsu. A warm sphere of flame glowed brightly over the water before gently dispersing in a burst of steam. She made sure it was precise and safe, causing no harm to the surroundings. Sasuke's eyes widened. He turned to his father and saw admiration there, not comparison, but recognition of skill. Something stirred in his chest. Naruko smiled kindly. "I can help you, Sasuke. We can practice together. Maybe we can even become friends." Fugaku nodded once and departed to attend to his responsibilities, trusting them both. Sasuke crossed his arms, his pride wrestling with his desire to improve. Without another word, he turned and walked home, determined to train even harder. Naruko watched him go, her smile softening. She did not feel upset. She understood what it felt like to want acknowledgement. She looked toward the trees briefly, sensing someone observing quietly, then headed back home to rest for the next day's training. Present day. Throughout the village, everyone knew how talented Naruko was. She had awakened her Sharingan early and trained tirelessly to master it. Yet what many did not see was how hard she worked behind the scenes. Her strength was not simply talent, it was dedication. Sasuke noticed it all. He envied her skill, but more than that, he longed to prove himself worthy of his brother's attention, worthy of his father's pride, worthy of his own expectations. As Naruko passed him later that evening, she gave him a bright wave. "See you tomorrow, Sasuke. Let's both give it our best." Sasuke did not respond immediately. But after she walked away, he glanced at her retreating figure and quietly tightened his fists, not in anger, but in resolve. Naruko returned home feeling hopeful. She believed that one day Sasuke would understand that rivalry did not have to mean distance. They could grow stronger side by side. And as the stars began to glow above the village, both children made a silent promise, to train harder, to grow kinder, and to discover their own paths in their own time. Next morning, Naruko's first day. The next morning, Naruko woke up slowly to the gentle ringing of her alarm clock. She blinked a few times and stretched, remembering that she had stayed up a little late reading. After dinner with her father the night before, she had hurried to her room to study. Recently, she had discovered a growing interest in fuinjutsu, the intricate art of sealing techniques. It fascinated her how symbols and patterns could hold meaning and power. Naruko knew she might never match her father's graceful skill with the art, but she wanted to become capable in her own way. She had begun to understand that strength alone was not enough. Being powerful did not matter if she could not think clearly or understand the situation around her. Though she had great potential, she still considered herself a beginner when it came to experience. That realization motivated her to learn more each day. She stepped out of bed and made her way to wash up. After a refreshing bath and brushing her hair neatly, she felt more awake. Today made her a little nervous. She did not have many friends her age besides Sakura and Hinata. She wondered what her classmates would be like. Would they be kind? Would they share her excitement about learning? Deciding not to overthink it, Naruko dressed quickly. She wore a comfortable gray shirt, black pants, and her usual black gloves. Today, she chose to add a maroon kimono tied with a black sash around her waist. The Uchiha clan symbol rested proudly on the back. She admired herself briefly in the mirror, took a steady breath, and headed downstairs. In the dining area, her father, Minato, sat at the table reviewing papers with a warm cup of coffee nearby. Even as the Hokage, he always made time for her. That thought filled Naruko with gratitude. "To-chan. We'll be late for the academy," she called cheerfully as she took a seat beside him. Minato smiled at his daughter, brushing a hand gently over her hair. "I know, Naruko. Eat your breakfast, and we'll leave together." Naruko happily poured milk over her cereal and finished it quickly. She grabbed a banana and drank a glass of orange juice. Though she loved visiting Ichiraku Ramen in Konoha, she had learned the importance of eating healthy most days. Once breakfast was done, she slipped on her sandals, and together they stepped out of the Namikaze compound. As they walked through Kanahagakure, villagers greeted Minato respectfully and waved at Naruko. She noticed the difference in their expressions. In the past, some had looked at her with uncertainty. Now many smiled warmly. It surprised her, but she chose to return each greeting with kindness. Naruko understood that people sometimes struggled with their feelings, especially when reminded of difficult memories. Instead of holding on to confusion, she focused on her goal, to grow into someone who brought understanding and peace. She believed that even powerful beings deserved compassion and fairness. That belief guided her heart. Minato glanced at her and felt proud. Watching his daughter walk confidently through the village brought him comfort. More than anything, he wanted her to build friendships and share her bright spirit with others. As they neared the academy, an elderly woman standing outside a small grocery store called out warmly, "Good morning, Naruko-chan. Is today your first day at the academy?" Naruko smiled brightly. "Yes. But please, just call me Naruko. I'm really excited to start." The woman nodded kindly. "Then I wish you the very best. Study well and make many friends." "I will," Naruko replied, waving enthusiastically. Holding her father's hand, she continued down the path toward the academy gates. The building stood tall in the morning sunlight, full of possibility. Naruko felt a flutter of nervousness, but even more excitement. Today was not just about lessons. It was about meeting new people, discovering new strengths, and taking the first steps toward becoming her best self. And with that hopeful thought, Naruko walked forward, ready for whatever adventures the day would bring. At the academy, Naruko's first day. In every hidden village across the elemental nations, there stands a special place where children begin their journey toward becoming shinobi. The academy is not only a school but also a place where dreams are shaped with patience, discipline, and kindness. There, students learn about the history of their village, the meaning of teamwork, and the foundations of shinobi arts such as taijutsu, careful tool practice with kunai and shuriken, and simple exercises to guide their chakra with focus and responsibility. The Konoha Academy is one of the largest and oldest schools, built gradually since the era of the first Hokage. The building is easy to recognize. A tall tree stands proudly at the entrance with a wooden swing tied to one of its sturdy branches. Above the doorway hangs a large sign marked with the kanji for fire, symbolizing the village's spirit. Nearby is the Hokage's office, where important village matters are handled and missions are thoughtfully assigned. On a bright morning, Naruko Namikaze arrived at the academy with her father, Minato. Her golden hair shimmered in the sunlight, and the whisker-like marks on her cheeks made her expressions especially lively. Although she tried to appear confident, her hands trembled slightly. She wondered if Sakura and Hinata would truly be in her class. They had promised they would join her, but recent events in the village had made everything uncertain. Naruko hoped she would at least see familiar faces. Minato noticed the subtle shake in her hand. He remembered feeling the very same way on his own first day. With a gentle smile, he knelt so they were eye to eye. "It's going to be okay, Naru," he said warmly. "It's your first day at the academy. Feeling nervous just means you care." Naruko let out a small laugh. "It's just hard to imagine you being nervous about anything. You're always so brave." Minato chuckled softly. "Even the bravest people feel nervous sometimes. What matters is taking the next step anyway." Naruko nodded. Taking a deep breath, she gave her father a determined smile and hurried toward the academy doors. She waved once more before stepping inside. The classroom was spacious with high ceilings and sunlight pouring through wide windows. A large blackboard stood at the front, and rows of desks were neatly arranged. Standing near the teacher's desk was a man with dark hair tied in a ponytail and a calm yet observant expression. Naruko quickly scanned the room. Relief filled her heart when she spotted Sakura seated in the second row and Hinata near the back. Both gave her encouraging smiles. "Who might you be?" the teacher asked kindly. "I'm Naruko Namikaze," she replied politely. "I enrolled this year." Whispers filled the room. "Namikaze? The Hokage's daughter? She looks so confident. Her hair is so pretty." Naruko felt her cheeks warm but stood tall. "I am Iruka Umino," the teacher said with a welcoming nod. "I will guide you for the next 4 years. Please choose any open seat." Naruko found an empty desk near the back and sat down. Beside her sat a quiet boy with short black hair and pale skin. He stared forward with a distant expression. Naruko sensed something thoughtful and heavy in his demeanor. She offered a friendly smile and extended her hand. "I'm Naruko." After a brief pause, he shook her hand. Sigh. Naruko felt a spark of happiness. Making a new friend on the first day felt like a small but meaningful victory. At the front of the room, Iruka observed the class carefully. Many students came from important clans, each carrying expectations and traditions. Yet in that moment, they were simply children beginning their journey together. As the lesson began, Naruko listened closely. She realized that being a shinobi was not only about strength or skill. It was about learning, growing, and supporting one another. With Sakura's bright enthusiasm, Hinata's gentle encouragement, Sai's quiet presence, and Iruka's steady guidance, Naruko felt her nervousness slowly fade. Her adventure at the academy had only just begun, and she was ready to grow into someone who carried the will of fire with kindness and determination. At the front of the training field, Iruka-sensei stood tall and calm, his eyes kind but focused. "Akane and Naruko Uzumaki," he finished clearly. Naruko blinked in surprise, then grinned brightly. She stepped forward with confident energy, her golden hair catching the sunlight. She stood tall, proud, and respectful. She had always loved learning, whether it was history, chakra theory, or taijutsu practice. To her, every lesson was a step toward becoming someone dependable and kind. Akane walked forward as well, tying her hair back with determination. Iruka-sensei raised a hand. "Remember, this is a friendly match. No one is here to hurt anyone. We are here to learn. You will show control, balance, and respect. There is a strict rule: there is no nudity anywhere in this story. All characters are fully and appropriately dressed at all times." The students formed a circle around the training space. Mizuki-sensei stood nearby, watching quietly. "Begin," Iruka announced. Naruko moved lightly on her feet. She remembered what Iruka had taught them about stance and breathing. Akane lunged forward carefully, aiming to test Naruko's balance. Naruko sidestepped smoothly, her movements controlled and thoughtful. She wasn't trying to overpower anyone, she wanted to demonstrate technique. The two exchanged quick, careful movements, blocks, steps, and light taps meant only to show form. Naruko noticed that Akane favored her right side. Instead of exploiting it unfairly, she adjusted her pace to keep the match balanced and educational. Shikamaru watched with mild interest. "She's thinking 3 steps ahead," he murmured. Kiba grinned. "She's fast." Choji paused his snack to observe more closely. Even Shino gave a small nod of approval. Naruko saw an opening and gently tapped Akane's shoulder in a way that clearly demonstrated a scoring point. She immediately stepped back and bowed slightly. The 2 minutes ended. "Well done," Iruka-sensei said warmly. Naruko showed excellent footwork and awareness. "Akane, your determination was admirable. With more balance training, you will improve quickly." Naruko offered Akane a hand. "You moved really well at the start. Want to practice together later?" Akane smiled, accepting the help. "Yes. Thank you." Iruka-sensei looked around at the class. "Taijutsu is not about proving you are better than others. It is about understanding your body, controlling your strength, and protecting what matters." Naruko listened closely, her blue eyes shining with determination. She loved these lessons, not just the physical training, but the values behind them. History had taught her where the village came from. Training would help her protect its future. As the next pair of students stepped forward, Naruko returned to her spot, thoughtful but cheerful. She realized something important: being strong was wonderful, but being respectful and supportive was even better. And this was only the first day. 2 years and 2 months later. It had been a little over 2 years since Naruko Uzumaki began her new chapter at the Shinobi Academy of the Hidden Leaf Village. Life had changed in the brightest way possible. She had learned what it meant to laugh freely, to trust others, and to chase dreams with determination. Her biggest goal remained clear in her heart: one day, she would become a proud and capable shinobi of Konohagakure. Over the past few years, Naruko had formed strong friendships with Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame. Kiba was the most energetic of the group, always ready with a bold idea or cheerful comment. Naruko found his enthusiasm contagious. Shikamaru and Choji were often seen together, enjoying quiet afternoons. Shikamaru had a habit of lying on the grass and watching clouds drift across the sky, and Naruko had tried it too. To her surprise, she found it peaceful and calming. Shino, though quiet, had a thoughtful presence. Naruko made sure to include him in every conversation, and she appreciated the wisdom he shared when he chose to speak. Together, they made a balanced and loyal team of friends. Naruko had also gotten to know Ino Yamanaka, who was lively and confident. Ino often found creative excuses to talk to Sasuke Uchiha, whom many students admired for his calm and distant demeanor. Naruko did not fully understand the fascination, but she respected everyone's feelings and focused on her own growth. Her closest bonds, however, were with Hinata Hyuga and Sakura Haruno. Over the past year, the 3 girls had spent countless afternoons training, studying, and encouraging one another. They shared stories about how their perspectives on the shinobi world had matured. Sometimes, Sakura still had unsettling dreams from a frightening event in the past, and Naruko and Hinata would gently reassure her that she was safe and never alone. Naruko and Hinata, in particular, had grown especially close. The Hyuga clan had come to deeply respect Naruko's bravery and kindness. On several occasions, Naruko and her father, Minato Namikaze, were invited to dinner at the Hyuga main house. Naruko always behaved politely, though she could never quite hide her bright smile. At school, Naruko usually sat beside Hinata and Sakura. She noticed that some classmates would whisper or glance in her direction, which confused her. When she mentioned it to her father, Minato simply chuckled warmly and ruffled her hair. "Some things," he told her kindly, "you'll understand as you grow." Academically, Naruko excelled. She consistently ranked at the top of her class in written exams, taijutsu practice, ninjutsu exercises, and even precise tool-throwing drills. She worked hard, but more importantly, she loved learning. Sasuke, who often placed second, seemed quietly determined to improve as well. Naruko viewed it not as rivalry, but as motivation to push herself further. Still, she had her concerns. Although she enjoyed being at the academy with her friends, she sometimes wondered whether the lessons fully prepared students for the responsibilities of becoming a genin. When she spoke with her father about it, Minato listened thoughtfully. He explained that the village had been in a period of relative peace, so the academy had softened its intensity. However, he agreed that improvement was necessary and promised that future changes would better equip students for real-world challenges. Naruko admired her father's dedication to making the village stronger. That morning marked the final day of their second year. There would be a written examination followed by friendly taijutsu matches to test their progress. Lost in thought about how quickly time had passed, Naruko suddenly realized she was running late. She hurried to get ready, carefully dressed in her usual training clothes, and made sure she looked presentable. Once ready, she dashed toward the academy building, sunlight catching in her golden hair. She reached her classroom door slightly out of breath and knocked politely. "Come in," called Iruka Umino from inside. Naruko stepped into the room with a bright smile, ready to face whatever challenges the day would bring. Her journey was only beginning, and she felt certain that with kindness, courage, and the support of her friends, she would continue to grow into the shinobi she dreamed of becoming. Naruko stepped into the classroom a little out of breath, brushing a strand of bright golden hair away from her face. Her teacher, Iruka, looked at her carefully. When she had first joined the academy, some people only saw her as the girl who carried the nine-tailed fox spirit within her. But over time, Iruka had come to know Naruko for who she truly was, a kind-hearted, determined student who cared deeply about her friends. "Naruko, why are you 15 minutes late for class?" Iruka asked in a firm voice. He cared about her very much, but he never showed favoritism. Every student was treated equally. "I'm sorry, Iruka-sensei," she replied honestly. "I stayed up late training and overslept this morning. It won't happen again." Iruka gave a small sigh, though there was understanding in his eyes. "Please take your seat." Naruko nodded and found an empty spot between Hinata and Kiba. "Good morning, Naruko," Hinata said softly, smiling. "Morning, Hinata," Naruko replied cheerfully. She noticed the gentle scent of flowers clinging to Hinata's clothes. Hinata loved helping in her family's garden, and Naruko always thought it suited her calm personality. Kiba, meanwhile, was fast asleep at his desk. With a playful grin, Naruko formed a tiny hand sign under her desk. A small droplet of water gathered in her palm. Making sure not to cause any trouble, she lightly flicked the water onto Kiba's cheek. He jumped up with a startled yelp. "What happened?" Naruko giggled. "You're awake. We have an exam today. I didn't want you to miss it." Kiba blinked, then laughed along with her. Hinata covered her mouth as she giggled quietly. "Kiba." "Naruko." Iruka called out. "Voices down, please." Both students quickly straightened in their seats. Nearby, Shikamaru had been resting his head on his hands. He slowly lifted his head, looking confused. "Shikamaru," Iruka said with a raised brow, "are you planning to nap through the exam?" "I wasn't sleeping," he murmured, followed immediately by a wide yawn. The class chuckled softly. Naruko looked around at her friends, feeling warm inside. These peaceful, happy moments meant everything to her. They reminded her why she worked so hard, to protect smiles and build stronger bonds. At the front of the room stood Iruka and his assistant, Mizuki. Mizuki handed out the written tests one by one. Naruko noticed that Mizuki sometimes gave her a sharp look. She did not fully understand why, but instead of letting it bother her, she focused on her paper. She believed that staying positive was always the better choice. The written portion went smoothly. Naruko felt confident in her answers. Afterward, the class gathered outside for the practical portion of the exam. Iruka addressed them clearly. "You will now demonstrate your taijutsu skills. Remember, this is about showing improvement and respect for your classmates. Keep it safe and controlled." Everyone nodded. The early matches were friendly and energetic. Students moved carefully, focusing on form rather than force. Naruko watched closely, observing techniques and cheering for good effort. Sai had a match next. He moved with quiet precision, winning his round gracefully. Naruko noticed that he always seemed to hold something back, as if he preferred to stay unnoticed. Kiba and Shino followed. It was a balanced match, full of clever footwork. In the end, Kiba managed to score the final point, and both students bowed respectfully to each other. "Next match, Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka," Iruka announced. Ino stepped forward confidently. Sakura looked a little nervous, but Naruko walked up beside her. "You've worked hard, Sakura," she said gently. "I believe in you." Sakura's eyes brightened. "Thank you, Naruko." The match began. Ino moved quickly, but Sakura stayed calm. She sidestepped neatly and responded with controlled, precise movements. With careful timing, Sakura landed a clean point that ended the match. The class gasped in surprise, then burst into applause. "Great job, Sakura," Naruko called out proudly. Sakura beamed. She had spent many afternoons training with Naruko and Hinata, practicing balance and focus exercises like walking up trees and across water surfaces using chakra control. Her dedication had paid off. Iruka smiled warmly. He could see how much his students had grown, not just in skill, but in character. As the matches continued, Naruko stood with her friends, cheering for everyone equally. She wasn't focused on being the strongest. She wanted to grow alongside the people she cared about. In that bright training field, under the clear sky, Naruko felt something important. True strength came from kindness, hard work, and believing in one another. Naruko smiled, ready for whatever challenge came next, determined to keep improving, not just as a ninja, but as a friend. The next match was between Hinata and a civilian girl from the Academy's General Studies class. Naruko stood beside Hinata before the match began and gently squeezed her hand in quiet encouragement. She did it so subtly that almost no one noticed. Their bond was unusual but deeply sincere. Naruko trusted Hinata in a way she trusted very few people. From the first day they met, Hinata had seemed different. She was soft-spoken and thoughtful in conversation, yet focused and determined during practice. They did not always need words. Sometimes a simple glance was enough. Naruko had shared worries and dreams with Hinata that she had never voiced to anyone else, not even her father. Hinata understood without judgment. Hinata smiled warmly at Naruko before stepping into the ring. The spar was quick and respectful. With calm precision and excellent technique from the gentle fist style of the Hyuga clan, she scored clean points and won the match. She helped her opponent up immediately afterward, offering kind words and encouragement. The crowd applauded her skill and sportsmanship. The next match between Shikamaru and Choji brought laughter to the arena. As soon as they faced each other, Shikamaru sighed and declared that fighting his best friend sounded like too much trouble. Choji nodded in agreement. After a few quiet minutes of standing still, Shikamaru forfeited. Iruka-sensei gave them both a long lecture about responsibility and effort, while many students tried, and failed, to hide their amused smiles. Finally, Iruka announced, "Today's last match will be between Naruko Namikaze and Sasuke Uchiha." Excited murmurs filled the academy grounds. Some students cheered loudly for Sasuke. Others whispered curiously about Naruko. "Go get him, Naruko," Kiba called enthusiastically. "Good luck, Naruko," Hinata said softly. She did not look worried. She believed in Naruko completely, not because Naruko was unbeatable, but because she always gave her best. Shikamaru and Shino simply nodded. They both knew Naruko was far more capable than she usually showed during lessons. Naruko and Sasuke stepped into the ring and faced one another. Sasuke stood confidently, clearly proud of how much he had improved. He had trained diligently in taijutsu, ninjutsu, and strategy. His hard work showed. Naruko, meanwhile, looked calm. Her mentors had always reminded her that focus and patience were just as important as skill. She respected Sasuke's effort, but she also knew that confidence should never turn into pride. Iruka signaled the start of the match. For a moment, neither moved. Sasuke took a steady stance, activating his Sharingan. A few students gasped in amazement. Naruko remained composed, her expression steady and thoughtful. After a long pause, Sasuke tried to provoke her with teasing remarks about her friends. Naruko's eyes sharpened slightly. She cared deeply about her friends. Still, instead of reacting emotionally, she took a slow breath. "You shouldn't underestimate anyone," she said evenly. In the blink of an eye, she moved, not with aggression, but with remarkable speed. She lightly tapped Sasuke's shoulder to unbalance him and followed with a swift, controlled maneuver that gently guided him to the ground. The impact was firm but not harmful. She stepped back immediately, giving him space to stand. The crowd fell silent in surprise. Sasuke stood again, determined. He charged forward, but Naruko redirected his momentum with practiced ease, turning his advance into another harmless stumble. She remained careful, making sure not to cause injury. Everyone watched in awe, not because of cruelty, but because of her discipline. Naruko was not trying to embarrass Sasuke. She was teaching him something without saying it aloud. "Is that all you have?" she asked calmly, not as an insult, but as a challenge to grow. Sasuke clenched his fists, frustration mixing with determination. "Why am I still falling short?" Naruko studied him quietly. She understood that strength was not just about power. It was about balance, humility, and heart. The match ended with Naruko declared the winner after scoring the final point. She offered Sasuke her hand to help him up. "You've improved a lot," she told him sincerely. "Let's both get stronger." Sasuke hesitated, then accepted her hand. From the sidelines, Hinata smiled. She knew Naruko's true strength was not how fast she moved or how skilled she was, it was her ability to care deeply and still remain steady. As the sun lowered over the academy grounds, the students left with more than just results from matches. They left with lessons about friendship, perseverance, and growing together. All this anger, it's not good for you, Sasuke. You think being an Uchiha makes you better than everyone else. You don't even know what I'm truly capable of. True strength isn't about showing off, it's about understanding yourself and others. If you keep thinking that way, you'll never really grow, Naruko said, her voice steady but carrying a weight of emotion. Okay. That's enough. The match is over, shouted Iruka, raising his voice. Even he felt surprised at seeing this intense side of Naruko. But deep down, he reminded himself that Naruko was still the kind, caring girl he had always known. Sasuke, frustrated by Naruko's words, tried to stand and rush forward again. But before he could, Naruko gently took his hand and looked him in the eyes. Her gaze was firm yet compassionate, and somehow, Sasuke froze, caught off guard by the calm determination in her eyes. Slowly, he sat down, feeling the strength of her conviction. Naruko stayed where she was, her expression softening as she looked at her friend. When Iruka came over to help Sasuke up, he heard Naruko whispering an apology. Looking into her eyes, Iruka could see the same kind-hearted girl he always trusted. With the day's lessons complete, he dismissed the class, letting everyone head home. Outside the training grounds, Naruko walked briskly, needing a few moments alone to think. Her emotions often got intense, and she was learning that understanding them was just as important as controlling them. She remembered the words of Kurama, her fox friend. The greater your love, the stronger your emotions can become. You must learn to guide them, Naruko. A short distance away, Naruko felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She knew immediately who it was, Hinata. She recognized her friend's chakra signature without even looking. Turning around, Naruko did the only thing she could do at that moment. She hugged Hinata tightly. Hinata hugged her back, letting her friend know that she wasn't alone, no matter how strong her feelings became. You don't have to carry everything by yourself, Hinata whispered kindly. Naruko closed her eyes, feeling a warmth in her heart. For the first time that day, she felt her anger and sadness start to fade. With friends like Hinata, she knew she could face her emotions and grow stronger, not by fighting others, but by understanding herself and the people she cared about. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the content, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my YouTube channel for more updates. Warm regards. Anime Dreams.